What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now Plus. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to talk about Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 and its budget. And I know, obviously, the storyline going around with this thing is, how in God's name is this possible? Now, there might be a little explanation, and to kind of cut right to it, right? The budget for this game has reportedly been around $40 million. Now, you have to do the conversion of the currency versus the U.S. currency, but it ends up getting around $40 million. It's roughly double of the original Kingdom Come. I think these articles started to pop up when really the game first launched like a week ago, and you could tell immediately, oh, it already made its money back, right? Oh, it's already making money. The game sold extremely well, had still, I think even to this day right now, has a lot of people playing concurrently on Steam. You know, it's probably doing well on console too. They have made their money back. And then when you see that the budget is what the budget is, you say, oh my God, this game really didn't need to do all that much. And you can go a lot of different directions, with this topic. I mean, just in terms of sales, you look at that budget and you say, okay, this isn't a game that needs to sell, 7, 8, 9 million units just to break even. You can look at like a Spider-Man 2 with PlayStation and Insomniac and Marvel as an example of not just a game with a big budget, right? Because that's an issue, and that's something I want to talk about in this video as well. Big budget, but also you have that contract with Marvel, right? So a big cut already goes to Marvel just to begin with. So now you got to sell maybe like 2-3 million units just to make that Marvel cut. Then you got to do the rest of it just to make the budget back. Then you got to do even more just to start to make money back. Now, as I said, I think at least I've seen other people say, and I do think this is probably a pretty safe answer. I mean, you guys can speculate in the comments. I think there's probably a little bit more to it. But the workforce is probably a good answer. You think of games that have ballooning budgets nowadays, right? You think of games that cost 100, 150, 200, 250 million dollars. Well, you think, okay, well, people cost a lot of money, right? People, I mean, yeah, there's different positions in gaming, but some of those higher up positions can be easily 100,000 plus, even 150,000 plus, right? So you have a team of like 250, 350 people, right? A lot of people in this big AAA type studio, and they're making that kind of money, and then the game takes 5 years in development. You have actually done it. I mean, yes, there's technology, and there's a lot of, there's other things that gets put into the budget, right? Like I said, sometimes you have to have those cuts for those like exterior companies, but just the workforce is a sizable portion of a budget, right? Because you just think, again, multiple hundreds of people, 5-6 years of paying them per year. So you have 10 people at $100,000. That's $1 million, and that's 1 year. Then you do it for 5 years. That's $5 million just for those 10. Now multiply that by, 20, 30, 40, right? It can add up extremely, extremely fast. So a few things. Number one, this game was made with around, I think, 250 people. They had around 120, 130 people working on the first game. This game roughly doubled, slightly less though, right? Because I think they kept it under 250. They do expect to expand, further though, even past that number. So you say, okay, well, the next game's probably going to go up in budget a little bit. But, I don't know. I mean, you could think of a couple different things. The workforce, again, is like a primary one, but this has led to other people talking about where it's like, this game comes out, and is it without bugs? No, it's got bugs. It's got its issues. I mean, it's a grand game, right? It's a huge game. But this game actually is really well polished. This game, you talk about some of the technology, like some of the specs and stuff on PC and what it has versus what it doesn't have. I mean, it is honestly kind of running laps around other games that seemingly can't figure things out. So not only, I think it's almost like a twofold thing, right? Maybe even three. The game is really good. This is not, by the way, a very cheap but also kind of terrible game. No, this is a very cheap game. For the type of game that it is, this would take Western studios, or even just not them. Maybe it's just not them in general. But this would take other studios maybe quadruple the amount of money to make a game like this. And yeah, you can say, well, maybe the voice actors or the actors in general, maybe they get paid, a fifth of the money. Maybe, again, we talk about people that make $100,000, $150,000. Maybe the max they're making over there in U.S. currency, maybe it's $50,000, $60,000, right? That's nowhere near as high. And then even if you multiply that out, but you also think like the game actually took a while. Like this was not a game they turned around and made in like 2-3 years. This took them, 5-6 plus years. So, they took their time. It's hard to say, like, the reason I guess I throw that in is like, well, what can you learn from this, right? Because I do think no matter if it's the workforce, no matter like what the reasoning is that the budget is this low, you've got to, I think if you're any other studio that's in crisis mode right now, by the way, you have to learn something from these things. You don't have to learn everything, but you got to pick like one thing at least, right? And say, what can we pick up from this? And I will say, to be fair to like all the other studios, the length of time is probably not the thing you can pick up, right? You can say, okay, well, I mean, I think it's an obvious thing to say where it's like, okay, we'll just make games shorter and make games that take less time. Well, actually, funny enough, Kingdom Come does the opposite. This is a game that is 100 plus hours. This is a game that I think factually is longer than the first game. This game took probably around the same amount of time to develop as the first game. And like I said, it's bigger and all that stuff. So the length isn't shorter. In fact, it's bigger. The budget is actually double, and it took around the same time. So, like, those are all just not lessons that you learn, but I don't know, like, smart money spending. Somewhere in there, they had very, very smart spending, and I don't know if it's, again, maybe just, like, their region type thing, and if that's the case, what I think the best case scenario would be is you hope that not only can you keep making more Kingdom Come games, right, but you know how we're having all these kind of, like, offshoot studios, right? 5 people leave from a team, and they create their own studio, and they say, from the creators of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, right? That happens a lot. That's been happening a lot, nowadays. And those are interesting studios to watch. Like, they can make games that maybe rival those AAA big games and big studios that they came from. Maybe they could even be better, right? You hope, I guess, that like just more studios can pop up in these regions. I mean, honestly, it's a thing with like a Black Myth Wukong. It's a thing with like the Stellar Blades of the world. Phantom Blade Zero, coming out in a few years, whenever it comes out. I mean, 2 of those games I just mentioned did come out and did really well, and then Phantom Blade, I hope, also does really well. I wish for the success for these games, not just because I like video games and I like good games to play. Well, actually, that's the biggest part. I like those games. I like playing those games. Their success not only means more of them, more sequels and stuff, but it also probably means that more people and more studios in that same region in the world are going to try. Or they're going to be branching off and they'll have 2 studios instead of 1. Because I think that sometimes these studios just kind of need a kick in the butt and say, yeah, you can make it work. And for something like Kingdom Come, I mean, if it's only going to cost you even less than 60, 70, 80 million, even if you keep it less than 100 million, I mean, these are games. The first game sold, I think, 8+ million units, right? That is a game that would succeed by Square Enix's standards, by EA standards, by Sony standards. That's a highly successful game, really, no matter the budget. Even like a $250 million game, if you sold 8 million, you'd be pretty happy. You'd probably want to do a little bit more, but you'd be pretty happy. This is a game that did that, and it cost the first game, and it cost $20 million to make. This second game, probably same thing. 5 to 10 million sales, cost 40 million. It costs double, big whoop. The game is going to make unreal amounts of money in return, right? So whatever the reasoning is here, however this happened, you got to learn from it. You got to try to replicate it. And I guess if you can't, worst case scenario is a lot of studios cannot replicate this, then you just hope that other studios or people that see it and they say, oh my God, there is an opportunity out there for us to do it. And then they do it and they go off and they make their own studios and they make these games because this is kind of how it happened in the first place, right? This is how Shift Up, they did Stellar, but this is how these studios kind of start. It's just, they do one thing, they kind of pivot, they try it out, and what do you know, it actually works out very, very well. So I just want to see that happening more and more, and you need success for that to happen, right? But we're seeing it. We're seeing a lot of success with these types of games, just from all different kind of pockets of the world. That's really cool to see. Also, it's just more competition. It's more people making games and saying, hey, who cares what their hourly rate is? Who cares where it came from? Kingdom Come, it could be double the length of some of these games. It can be a third of the budget, and it's just overall better. And that's something you probably need to learn from as well and say, if we can't match the budget, we need to match the quality. We need to make our games better. And that's what happens, when success happens. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.